Coming up, a coach crashes on the M5, ending up on its roof with 53 people on board. Details next. Hello and welcome to ITV News Central. On the programme tonight, a lucky escape. The Midlands children who walked away from this.
Also tonight, are commuters being ripped off? The cost of train tickets goes up again.
This one's Jim. Malibu.
A cruel internet stunt. The man who swallowed 4 live fish in a cocktail.
It is simply not acceptable to treat an animal like this purely for amusement.
And surviving the world's most dangerous seas, the extreme swimmer who's conquered the 7 Oceans Challenge.
Good evening. What began as a children's trip to the seaside ended today with a terrifying motorway crash. Those on board were described as having a miraculous escape.
Yes, a coach carrying 53 youngsters and staff from a children's charity overturned. Most walked away uninjured. Police say things would have been far worse had they not been wearing seatbelts.
Well, the coach left a children's centre in Sandwell at around 8:30 this morning, heading south towards Weston-super-Mare. It overturned near junction 13 of the M5. And from the scene, Katie Rowlett reports.
They'd been travelling from the landlocked Midlands and were looking forward to a day at the seaside. Never for a moment did those on board think it would end this way. Just before 10 this morning, the coach they were travelling in lost control and left the motorway. It plunged off the hard shoulder and rolled into a ditch.
I find my kids, they were hanging on the seats with the seatbelt. Then people helped me to get them down.
It was here at a farmhouse just off the M5 that some of the 53 passengers took refuge immediately after the crash.
I was just telling people to calm down because I was aware that if I'd have released my seatbelt, for example, as the passenger next to me wanted, we would have crushed the people underneath.
5 adults and 1 child were injured. 3 seriously, according to the police. The coach driver is among that number and is being treated at Southmead Hospital for a suspected back injury.
It could have been far worse. I think we're fortunate because there was a large number of young children on board. There was obviously a big emphasis on them wearing seat belts and using the appropriate booster seats, etc. And I think that has meant that we're not dealing with fatalities here at this moment in time.
Some 5.5 hours after the coach overturned, it was removed. The M5 fully reopened at around 3:30. Police say they still have many questions as to how this happened and say it's nothing short of a miracle that most people walked away. Katie Rowlett, ITV News, Gloucestershire.
Well, next tonight, rail fares across the country will go up again next year. The news was confirmed today after the latest inflation figures. It means season tickets for commuters will go up by an average of 3.5% from next January. According to TUC figures, a season ticket from Birmingham to London, which this year costs over £5,000, could increase by nearly £200. The Worcester to Birmingham commute could go up by £46. It's an even bigger jump if you're travelling from Shrewsbury. That's up by £74. And travelling across the region regularly from Burton to Stoke could be £99 dearer. Well, today's news means fares will have increased by almost 25% over the last 5 years. And it's been met with anger by commuters. At Stoke-on-Trent railway station this afternoon, campaigners handed out leaflets as they protested against what they see as unreasonable increases. But will rail commuters see any benefit? Mike Pearce reports.
OK, so the total price of them is £46.50. For the region's army of commuters, one thing's for sure. From January they'll pay much more to get to work. And for some, the rise could be double the rate of inflation.
I can't afford it. So that means I might have to just take the bus. And that's 2 buses, and that's even more longer.
For working people, I'd rather them go down because there's no real offers in terms of rail cards for people going to work there and back. So it will bother me.
Well, I've been to a couple of train stations today and they're doing some building work, so maybe they need to pay the builders.
The higher they go up, the less you're going to use the trains. You're going to look at other means. What else are you supposed to do?
The government-regulated increase is based on today's inflation figure of 2.5% and another 1% on top to allow for investment. An average rise then of 3.5%. But with train companies allowed to put some tickets up by another 2%, it means some could go up by 5.5%. And that would mean between £200 and £400 a year more for many. Campaigners say over the last 4 years, rail fares have risen by more than 20%. But at the same time, wages have gone up just 7%. They say the time has come to stop the inflation-busting increases.
If you're paying these large season tickets, £4,000, £5,000, and you've had a hard day's work, you're tired, you get on a train, you're delayed, and you don't get a seat, you're really thinking this is not value for money.
The government say they've reduced the level of rises in recent years and last year pegged the increase at inflation.
There's an unprecedented investment in the rail network, and it's right to say, well, should passengers contribute to that? Of course, but there needs to be a balance between passengers and general taxpayers.
So why wouldn't you say today then the fact there'll be no above inflation fare increases? That's what passengers want, that's what they're telling you, that's what everybody wants. Why won't the government listen?
The Chancellor is absolutely committed to helping people with the cost of living.
So we're left waiting, with a final decision expected in November. Mike Pearce, ITV News.
Well, we've been running a Facebook poll on this. Unsurprisingly, 92% of you said that you thought the price rises were unfair. You can join in with your comments, and you can see what other people across the Midlands think about this story on our Facebook page. Go to facebook.com/ITV Central. Bob.
Thanks, Anne. Well, next tonight, pig farmers in the Midlands say they're under huge pressure because of Russia's ban on food imports from Western countries. It's led to a big increase in the supply of pork on world markets. One pig farmer has told ITV News Central the industry is already suffering, and this could put many producers out of business. Phil Brewster reports.
Running a pig farm is a precarious business. Low profit margins and fluctuating feed costs can make life difficult for producers. In recent weeks, pork prices have dropped by 20%. And for pig farms like this one, near Burton-upon-Trent, that's a big deal. With 500 sows producing 250 pigs a week, any fall in prices hits them hard.
We sell roughly 1 million kilos a year out of this farm. So, 8 pence a kilo difference or whatever is £80,000 per year difference in price, and it's big numbers.
But the fall in prices isn't a homegrown problem. It's the result of a crisis that began thousands of miles away. Following economic sanctions imposed on Russia for its alleged support for pro-Russian separatists in eastern Ukraine, President Vladimir Putin retaliated by banning food imports from certain Western countries.
With these Russian sanctions, there's going to be a glut of meat on the world market from Canada, who used to supply 40% of the pig meat to Russia. Where's that meat going to go?
But if pork supplies increase, leading to falling prices in the supermarkets, won't that be good for the consumer?
In the short term it is, but what it does is it ends up causing an awful lot of problems for farmers. It causes a lot of uncertainty, and in the end they'll stop producing and prices will go higher again.
But many fear that by the time that happens, the British pig industry could be nothing more than a niche market. In the last 10 years alone, the UK pig population has shrunk by 50%.
It's currently around the 450,000 mark. And during the period of decline last time, we lost a lot of money, millions of pounds. I don't think we'll do that again.
But does it really matter whether our pork is produced here or imported from abroad? James Leavesley thinks it does.
If we don't produce British pork, all you've done is shift the production of animals elsewhere where they have less stringent environmental codes and less stringent welfare codes, so you've exported it and it's disappeared because you can't see it.
Many farmers say the only way to ensure a long-term future for the UK pig industry is to buy British. But at a time when consumers are feeling the pinch, persuading them to pay that bit extra for their pork could prove difficult. Phil Brewster, ITV News.
A father of 4 from Herefordshire has been given an 18-month conditional discharge for causing unnecessary suffering to 4 fish after he swallowed them alive during an internet drinking challenge.
Paul Wooding mixed beer and spirits before adding the minnows, then drank it in front of friends and posted a video online. Well, today the RSPCA condemned his actions. Andy Bevan reports.
This is refuse collector Paul Wooding last February on a night out at the Dolphin Hotel in Ross-on-Wye. His friends on social media have given him a neck nomination, an online drinking challenge, passed from person to person, each one more outlandish than the last.
Run. Some more lemonade.
After adding all those ingredients, he reaches for another glass to one side. It contains 4 small fish.
4 little fishes.
We've stopped the video here, but Wooding went on to down the entire contents of the glass, fish and all. That video was posted on Paul Wooding's Facebook page, but was seen and forwarded by a horrified member of the public to the RSPCA. Today, Wooding, who admitted causing unnecessary suffering to an animal, arrived at Hereford Magistrates Court to be sentenced. He could have been jailed for up to 6 months. The court heard that on the night of the incident, Wooding had drunk 8 pints of beer and 4 double gins. He took the fish from a fish tank belonging to a friend. His solicitor told the court that Wooding knew he'd been stupid and irresponsible and that he was ashamed and embarrassed about what he'd done. The RSPCA had wanted Wooding to be banned from keeping animals, but the magistrates decided on an 18-month conditional discharge as, they said, there was no prolonged abuse intended. He was also ordered to pay £515 towards the costs of the case.
It is simply not acceptable to treat an animal like this purely for amusement. We hope that today's sentencing sends out the message that animals should never be abused in this way, and the RSPCA urged the public to report any such cruel acts.
The court also heard that Wooding, a father of 4 young children, kept a pet goldfish at home, but had no history of cruelty towards that or any other creature. He left the hearing without making any comment. Andy Bevan, ITV News.
The time is coming up to 13 minutes past 6. You're watching ITV News Central. Still to come. Time to take your pick. Who do you want the police? Who do you want to police the police in the West Midlands?
Plus, the man saved from a shark by dolphins during the world's toughest open water challenge.